Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. I'm recording this on January the 8th, 2021. It's not when it comes out. It's going to come out the following Monday. I am recording it now because the events of January 6th, 2021 are fresh in my mind. I am also sleep deprived and hopped up on all this Death Wish coffee here. I do not, as a rule, discuss too much about current events, politics, or religion on my channel. I don't like conflict, but at the same time, it is enough for evil to win that good men do nothing. So, I've been racking my brain for what I could say that is in any way pertinent or relevant to the conversation that has to be had at this point in time, particularly in America. Also, racking my brain for an allegory because, like Aesop of old, I prefer to speak about these things in terms that are less confrontational than a direct approach. So I'm going to talk about role-playing games, because that is my bailiwick, and the benefits and problems of examining personal worldview through the lens of role-playing games. Now, I say personal worldview in that you've got the setting, you've got the book that says what everything is within this universe, and you've got the game master who, they're doing their job, lays out the story and the setting such that everyone at the table has an idea of what is around them, who is around them, what the things are in the setting that they have to interact with, the world. But everyone at the table is going to have a slightly different picture, even if the dungeon master describes the scene perfectly, which doesn't happen for reasons. One, because it's impossible. Even if there is the best possible description, down to the minutest detail of what is in that room that the party finds themselves in, everyone at the table is going to have a different picture in their head. It's not the business of the dungeon master to put the exact same picture in everyone's head, but to put enough of the common elements together that when people start talking about what they are doing in that room, they are working with the same elements. You know, you walk into a room, there's a table and a chandelier, there are 4 men at the far end of the room, they look upset with you, what do you do? So everyone knows there's 4 guys, far end of the room, there's a table, there's a chandelier. The size of the room, the shape of the room, other things that might be in the room, is the table full of food, is the chandelier lit? All of these things are questions people may have. And as people ask questions about what is in that room, everyone gets a similar view of the room. But first impressions are not going to give you much information. You get a better view of that room when you ask some questions. So, jumping out from our allegory of that room, the world that you're set in. I'm working on a world setting with a layer action at the moment, and you work in big blotchy chunks and work down into the details most often. Start filling in blanks, see what you've got and how it all starts to fit together, and work on the details. And no matter how much work you put into it, it's never going to be exhaustive or encyclopedic, and it's going to have a lot of room for interpretation. And this is not just for the players and dungeon masters to concern themselves with. If you have designed a world correctly or a setting correctly, not only are the players going to have a large amount of variety in the image they have in their head of what that joint imaginary real world is, but their characters are likely to have distinctly different views on that reality. The characters become the player's lenses into that reality. It's through the characters and the character's knowledge, attitude, and interactions that the world gets fleshed out in the mind of the player, and the mind of the character gets more fleshed out, becomes a little bit more detailed, a little more real. Because that's what we want. We want characters that feel real, either player characters or non-player characters. We want them to have enough personal gravitas, enough uniqueness and individuality that we can go, oh yeah, that's almost like another person you're playing at that point in time. I love that character. Changing a character's worldview, writing a character, creating a character such that they don't have the same worldview as everyone around them, that they have a distinctly different worldview from those around them, is a really, really good way to do very good stuff for your campaign and very bad stuff for your campaign. Let me put that a different way. You can build two kind of relationships using this one technique, this technique of having a distinctly different worldview. You can build much closer beneficial relationships with that, and you can build much more powerful adversarial relationships using that technique. Let me describe this. There are dozens of reasons characters can have a distinctly different worldview. They came from another nation. They came from another continent. They came from another plane of existence. So they do not have the experience of this place that everyone is in, that people who are from here might have. They were taught differently. They had different mentors. They came from a different system of education. They had a different religious upbringing. So their understanding of how the universe was first assembled and currently operates is fundamentally different. It gives them a different way of looking at things. Not necessarily correct, but no more incorrect than anyone else's. When this happens within a party, so some of the best stuff I've seen is from player characters that have wildly different backgrounds who have to find that commonality, the stuff in the middle that they can all agree on. Like the players figuring out, oh, there's a table, there's a chandelier, there's 4 guys over there. They start to ask questions about the stuff that isn't common to their understanding. And in asking those questions, they fill in the blanks. They either find items that are common that they were not aware were common. Oh, we've got something very like that. We use this name for it, and we handle it a little bit differently. We don't do that when we sit down to eat. We do this when we sit down to eat. It's a little different. I can understand where that came from. finding those areas of commonality and understanding the differences forges relationships within the party, with NPCs. When you go through that process of asking the questions and finding commonalities and understanding the differences. Not necessarily, oh, I'm going to adopt that as mine right here, but understanding why that person is doing that thing or saying things are like this. Having that, they have their belief, I have my belief. I guess we are going to have to work with this. We're going to be working together. Okay. Is this getting in the way? No. If it does, we'll have to have a talk and we'll have to find an area of commonality. But in the meantime, everything seems to be working. Let's go talk to those guys on the other side of the room and see if we can make them stop being angry. When it comes to NPCs, this can work the same way. I love introducing an NPC that has a different worldview. Coming up with the worldviews is fun. I enjoy, well, they came from here, or they had an upbringing like this, so how is that going to make their view of the world different than what simple townsfolk might have, or the guy in the temple, the blacksmith they've got to deal with. He's had this fairly standard, rugged upbringing. How is this guy from the College of Alchemy going to be dealing with someone who's got that? Because they've got different worldviews. And bridging that gap forms relationships, positive relationships. It is when someone's worldview is not just different, but when they no longer see it as a reflection of a reality or a lens onto reality, but when they mistake their worldview for reality itself, that you have a problem. That is when you develop an adversarial relationship very quickly. When someone isn't looking for the common ground, they need you to be standing on the ground they're standing on. And if you're not standing on the ground that they're standing on, you are in the wrong and must be corrected or removed, at the very least, silenced. There are some ways to find those common grounds. They could. Well, you see things like this, I see things like this. There's similarities in the middle here. Let's look at a benchmark. Let's look at something that's got an objective reality to it. Let's look at something that we can measure, that we can hold a piece of rope up and see how the length compares. Let's look at something that we can agree on. If the person that they're speaking with is okay, let's take some time. I will see your measurements. Let's see. I will make some of my own, make no mistake, and we will compare these and see if things are as common as you say they might be. Okay, that's fine. That's diplomacy. That can forge interesting relationships moving on. If, however, the view is, I don't trust your measurements. Your measurements are from the hells, aren't they? These tools that you use to gauge this objective reality, as you call it, those can't be trusted. I've been told those tools are the tools used by demons, and if you pull them again, I must have no choice but to know you are consorting with these demons. Dude, it's a rope. Yes, a rope of demons. That particular brand of worldview, oh, it's out there. It's, those are your fanatics. And that's because they were raised, they were taught, they were indoctrinated, as it were, that is reality, not a worldview, not a set of teachings that over time can be questioned, expanded, explored, bent, used to build a larger and wider worldview. No, this is reality, and if you question it, you are wrong. If you question it, you are the enemy. Looking back over my career as a dungeon master, as a game master and game designer, I can see a lot of those. That is a cookie cutter enemy template right there. Throughout most of literature, science fiction, fantasy, what have you, you find those folks who have a fanatical grip on their worldview, regardless of outside information or alternate views. Those folks are going to be a problem. Is it Tom Baker's doctor said it the best, I think. That the very powerful and the very stupid have one thing in common. They do not change their views to meet the facts. They change the facts to meet their views, which is terribly inconvenient if you're one of the facts that need changing. It is not necessarily a matter of intelligence. Very intelligent people can get roped into this because there is a certain certainty, a security, a comfort in having a worldview that can't be questioned. And if you do see something that conflicts with that worldview, that's a problem. That is someone attempting to drive you from your worldview, probably deliberately, and you either need to correct them or silence them, ignore them, or remove them. And then you have jackbooted soldiers marching across the fields, taking people's land and putting their citizens to death for the common good. Because there is nothing that a worldview like that needs so much as more people to believe it. Worldviews aren't reality. The worldview I have sitting in this chair right now, I have a fairly good one, I think. I've based it as much as I can on the teaching I've had growing up from numerous different sources, the experiences not just of myself, but of people that I have interacted with. Some of you have shaped my worldview of what I can see and observe and measure, what I can reason out from that, and what I gain from asking questions about these things. My worldview is not reality. It is always going to be incomplete and skewed because it's coming through my eyes. I am never going to be able to have a worldview that isn't flavored by the me in the equation. And because I understand that, I take that to the RPG table. I take that to my writing. And that is a truth that governs how characters are different from one another. One of many ways, but that's a good, varied worldview. One that is somewhat flexible is gold when you're making up characters and thinking of party composition, and when you're looking for conflict and exploration in the world around them. You don't just want to walk through the dungeons and the fields and the cities. You want to explore the people and the culture and the ideas that are there. And that is the best kind of gaming that you can get. I don't mind a session where there isn't any combat, but people learn something about the world around them and perhaps even influence it in a positive way, generally in a negative way if they're incapable of getting positive result, but they've made a difference one way or another. And when I need a bad guy, I, more than half the time, go to someone with an inflexible worldview that has been mistaken for reality in their mind and put it in the character's way. I make that worldview just off enough that it is contrary to the goals, dreams, wishes, and possibly existence of my player characters, and I watch the sparks fly because things will burn. Things always burn. And player characters will often try to reason with those people. And I encourage that. I encourage that because I do enjoy the exploration. But sometimes exploration is a dangerous prospect. Sometimes you're going to go someplace you shouldn't go. There are risks in exploration, and this is the risk of personal exploration, of the interaction between people, of exploring that you're going to come across someone who is going to be so set, so determined by something that the player characters might not even think is real. They might have a different god or a leader who has made such astonishing claims that they couldn't possibly be accurate, but the fanatics will believe them. Will believe them till the day they die, and you can't change that. Someone who has adopted it so wholeheartedly that it has become their reality, not just their view, not just a set of opinions and beliefs, but their reality, that conversation is never going to go well. Because the more you try to convince them that there's problems with their worldview, the more that worldview digs into their mind, the more it sinks its claws, it sets its feet, drops an anchor. The more it gets challenged, especially if, heaven forbid, it gets successfully challenged. If you point out major flaws that are obvious, if you take 5 seconds to think about it, oh, no. You're just trying to fool me. I've been told your kind lies about these things. You can't tell me what the world is like. I have seen it with my own eyes, heard it with my own ears. Have you really? I have been told by someone I will always trust more than you. Those explorations lead to fights, conflicts, whole sessions, campaigns, wars. Those interactions are never going to net you the positive relationship that you are going to get with someone that has a flexible worldview. It's unfortunate that that is a tried and true archetype, and you can find them. They're closer than you think. But yeah, you find someone whose worldview can't be questioned, who bends every fact to fit their views. And yeah, if they are scattered about and communicating in secret and keeping themselves to the shadows where they know they will eventually be a problem. They might be a problem here and there. They might be an occasional encounter. If they have organization, leadership, a voice, you're going to have much, much larger problems. And you're going to try and have discourse with those individuals, those hopefully NPCs. You can have a PC who's like that, but that's not a PC who's going to last very long in the party. You could have a whole party of those. Sometimes I can imagine just an endorphin rush. There's a certain joy in being able to plant a flag in reality and saying, you can't question what I know. This is right. And if you question it, you're wrong. It can be a paladin archetype. All too often it is. Paladins who work in mixed parties do kind of have to have a certain amount of flexibility, because you can't just start stabbing the rogue every session. It gets old. But it can be. That's usually best reserved for NPCs. People that the party is going to have to deal with, because they're there. They're in that world. They're part of that setting. There's no avoiding the fact that those individuals are going to be there. And at some point, you're going to have to deal with them. But an experienced party, a group who has learned to modify their worldviews, to expand them so that they fit the facts as they are presented, as opposed to fitting the facts to their worldviews. We'll quickly come to realize those people, you can see them. You should keep an eye on them, because they are absolutely a source of potential trouble, but you can't change them. You can't. You can try to have a discourse with them, but it isn't going to go anywhere. You're not going to alter their worldview. You're going to bash your head against a brick wall. And at some point, there'll be fire, because there's always fire. Do they have to be an enemy? No. They will tend to be an enemy. They will tend, especially if you have tweaked them enough so that the worldview that they consider reality is just contrary enough. They don't think it's the complete opposite of everything everyone else believes. No, they think it's pretty close, but just off enough that they see enemies where there aren't enemies, that they see people that they should be befriending or protecting as people that they need to put down like wild dogs in the street. See their own countrymen who do not share their views as actually from another country. That makes it so much easier when you have to light things on fire, because there'll be fire. You can have those people in a society for a very long time, and they're not evil necessarily. Their worldview might be, but they're not. The people who gave them this worldview, who stuffed it in their ear until they couldn't hear anything else, might be. Those people, well, looking at the definition of the alignment, those people think that they're doing what needs to be done for the cause of good, that they are sacrificing themselves for something that is greater, that is better, that is worthy of that sacrifice. It's not necessarily evil. They can lead to evil acts. But to dig into that worldview, to have those conversations, that way lies madness. I'm saying that the folks who do have the inflexible worldview are mad necessarily. They are going to have a lot of beliefs that aren't reflected in reality. Again, the people probably aren't insane. The worldview can be insane. People probably aren't. They think everything's been reasoned out and taken care of, and they don't need to burn too many brain cells on it because it's all been figured out. And this is the way it is. As long as everything fits that nice, tight, little worldview that makes so much sense to them, as long as you can conform your stuff to that, they're fine. The exercise has a lot of merit. And if you're writing games or running games, it is absolutely worth your time to practice building different worldviews, exploring them, seeing how they change, seeing how the process of questioning things, the discourse between player characters with this worldview or player characters and NPCs, seeing how that makes the individuals involved grow and how fascinating that interchange can be, because that's one of the best things in role playing for me these days, especially. I've got people who really enjoy that particular variety of interplay, and you can't world build if you do not have people who understand that interplay. And while you're exploring that as a game master, designer, writer, what have you, make sure you explore that other side. Make sure you look at the mechanisms by which individuals gain an inflexible worldview rooted not in reality, but that tries to root reality in their worldview. See how that comes about, see the effects that it has, see the consequences that it brings. Because there will be fire. If you're a player in a D&D game, it's also a good idea. See if you can skew your character a little bit. Do something a little bit different. There's a character that comes at things the ways that you don't. Or that's different from all of your other characters. Different race, different religion, different character classes you usually play. Vary it up a little bit. And why do they come from there? Different backgrounds. They're used to giving a character all random. And build the mind, the worldview, the mindset that comes from that different approach. And then engage in that interaction with the dungeon master and the NPCs and the other player characters, and watch what happens when you start building networks of answers and questions and observations. Because it's a miraculous thing. It really is. You get to see this character that might just have been a set of numbers on a sheet to you when you started grow into something that is a living, breathing, imaginary entity, something that you're going to refer to for years to come, a memorable character you're going to really love playing. It is my privilege to be able to talk about these things in these terms. To have a career, a hobby turned career that is so creative and so broad and so inclusive that I can talk about worldviews, their relationship to reality or lack thereof, and how they can interact and conflict. And if you heard something of our modern discourse in that, that was probably not accidental. because we need to be careful how we handle our discourse these days. At the same time, we absolutely need to have our discourse these days. Because if you don't, you miss things. And when you miss things, when you don't keep your eyes on things, when you don't do your damnedest to understand when there is fire, because there will be fire, you'll have no idea why or how, or you'll be very easily pointed to things that didn't cause that fire. Keep your eyes out. You know where the fire comes from. You know who's setting it. Maybe you'll have better insights than most about what to do about it. I can hope. Thank you for following me along in this ramble. I look forward to a time when I don't have the urge to do these quite so much or so often. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If you would like to hear me talk about things like this, other subjects, things you'd like to hear me talk about, subjects you'd like to hear me cover, leave me a comment below. I will love getting your comment. You will love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you do, make sure you hit the little notification bell too, so you're alerted when my videos become available. If you'd like to contribute to the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps, allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Be careful out there. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me, and I will see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.